I still remember that morning like a haunting photograph burned into my mind, the morning when everything began to fall apart. The sky outside was pale gray, the kind that warns you of rain, but never delivers it. Harold's alarm didn't ring that day. Neither did mine. We both overslept, and I thought it was nothing more than a small inconvenience, one of those silly moments couples laugh about later. But that single delay, it became the thread that unraveled everything I'd tried to hide. Harold was calm as always, a man of steady habits. He never yelled, never complained, never lost his temper. I used to admire that about him once. But somewhere along the years, that same calmness started to feel suffocating. It made me restless, unseen. While he went to work, I spent my days teaching yoga, guiding people toward peace I could never find myself. I told myself it was harmless when I first met Charles. He worked at the same health club, a personal trainer with an easy smile, and a way of making every woman feel noticed. He laughed at my jokes, touched my arm too long, and for the first time in years, I felt alive. I never meant for it to go this far. But that morning, as Harold rushed through his usual routine, something inside me twisted. I pretended to search for my hairbrush while secretly glancing at the small folder on my laptop. Messages from Charles. Our messages. Our plans. Our sin in pixels. I'd even written the name of our secret trip, Aloha for a great time. Harold had no idea that while he was preparing for an important business trip that could earn him a promotion, I was preparing for an escape. 2 weeks in Hawaii, just Charles and me. No guilt. No expectations, no cold silences at the dinner table. Only freedom. At least, that's what I wanted to believe. That day, as I hurried out the door, I forgot to close my laptop. I still remember glancing back for half a second, that faint moment of hesitation. And I ignored it. I told myself Harold never snooped. He trusted me completely. That blind trust should have made me feel safe. Instead, it made me feel like a monster. When I returned home that night, everything seemed normal. Harold greeted me with the same warmth, the same smile that used to make my heart flutter years ago. Only this time, something in his eyes felt different. Calmer. Sharper. I should have noticed. For the next few weeks, life continued like nothing had changed. We ate dinner together. We watched our shows. We laughed, even kissed goodnight. But under that surface, something was brewing. Harold's presence felt heavier, his quietness colder. And yet, I didn't stop. Every night, when he fell asleep beside me, I'd lie awake texting Charles, whispering plans into the dark like they were confessions to a sin I hadn't yet committed. He promised me everything: warmth, adventure, love without boundaries. I told myself Harold would be fine. He had his career, his ambition. I had my heart. When the day finally came, everything felt like a dream. Harold was leaving for his business trip that morning, and I was supposed to fly out the next day. My suitcase was neatly packed in the closet, sundresses, swimsuits, and a ticket to my new beginning. Harold walked into the room, wearing that familiar navy suit, his tie slightly crooked. I reached out to fix it, the way I always did, but his hand stopped mine halfway. "I've got it," he said softly, smiling. It was the kind of smile that sent a shiver down my spine. Too gentle, too knowing. He kissed my forehead before leaving, and for a moment, I felt an ache in my chest. A whisper telling me not to go. To come clean. To burn the lies before they burned me. But I didn't listen. That evening, as I zipped my bag, I got a call from Charles. "Tomorrow morning, Gate 14, Terminal B," he said, excitement buzzing in his voice. "We'll be in paradise before noon." I smiled, forcing away the guilt that clawed at me. I told myself this was my second chance at happiness, that Harold and I had simply grown apart, and I deserved to feel alive again. The night before the flight, Harold returned home early. He looked exhausted, defeated even. "What's wrong?" I asked, my heart pounding.
He sighed.
"The client's canceled. The trip's off. We're losing a huge deal." For a brief, horrifying second, I froze. If he wasn't leaving, my plan would collapse. Charles would be waiting at the airport, alone. Panic raced through me, but I tried to mask it with sympathy. Oh no, Harold, I'm so sorry, I murmured, placing a hand on his shoulder. He looked at me for a long moment, too long. Then suddenly he smiled again. Just teasing, honey. The trip's still on. Relief washed over me, so strong I nearly cried. He kissed my cheek and asked, "You'll miss me, right? Any plans while I'm gone?" I laughed nervously. Nothing much. Just catching up with some yoga clients. He smiled, nodded, and walked away. I didn't notice the way his eyes lingered on my suitcase. The next morning, I dropped him off at the airport. He leaned in for a kiss, long, deep, like it meant something more. For a second, I almost said it, almost told him everything. But the guilt died under the weight of my own selfishness. As he disappeared into the crowd, I whispered, "Goodbye, Harold." When I returned home, I stood in our quiet house, staring at the life I was about to abandon. Every picture frame, every memory screamed at me to stop. But I turned away. My phone buzzed, a message from Charles. "Can't wait to see you tomorrow, baby." And just like that, the last piece of my conscience fell silent. That night, I dreamed of waves and sunlight and woke up drenched in guilt. But by morning, guilt was replaced by adrenaline. I grabbed my suitcase, locked the door, and told myself I was walking toward happiness. Little did I know I was walking straight into the trap my own hands had built. When I reached the airport the next day, everything looked brighter than ever. Charles was already there, smiling, waving me over. He kissed me in public, bold and careless, and for the first time in months, I didn't care who saw. "Ready for paradise?" he asked. I smiled. More than ever. We handed over our tickets, went through check-in, and waited near the boarding gate. I remember laughing at something stupid he said when the first officer approached us. "Excuse me, ma'am, sir, could you please step aside for a quick inspection?" My stomach dropped. "Is there a problem?" Charles asked. "Just routine, sir. Please come with us." I followed, my pulse racing, hands trembling. They took our luggage, unzipped the bags, and then everything slowed down. The officer's expression hardened. Another reached for his radio. "Ma'am, we need you to stay right here." I remember the words echoing like a nightmare. "What's going on?" I stammered. "Those aren't mine." "What are you talking about?" Then I saw it, small packets, neatly wrapped, glinting under the harsh airport lights. "Drugs." Charles turned pale. My body went numb. People were staring. Cameras flashed. My world was crumbling in front of strangers. I looked around, desperate, terrified, searching for help, but there was none. And as they read me my rights, I realized this wasn't just bad luck. This was punishment. Karma had finally found me. The flashing lights, the voices, the cold metal of the handcuffs biting into my wrists. Those are the things I still hear in my nightmares. Everything after that moment blurred together like a cruel film I couldn't pause. I remember screaming, not loud enough to be heard over the chaos. There must be some mistake. I don't even know what that is. But no one believed me. The officers spoke in clipped tones, professional but distant, like I was nothing more than another criminal caught at the gate. Charles stood frozen beside me, his face ghost white. I searched his eyes for some hint of reassurance, but all I saw was panic and guilt. "Charles, say something," I whispered, desperate. But he didn't. He didn't even look at me. When they led us away, his silence said everything I needed to know. Whatever this was, whatever we had, it wasn't love anymore. It was survival. At the airport security office, the world became smaller. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, and my reflection in the metal desk looked like a stranger's. My makeup had smudged, my hair was a mess, and tears streaked my cheeks like war paint. They opened my suitcase again, piece by piece. My dresses, my toiletries, my sandals, all innocent things that suddenly felt like evidence. And then those little white packets again. Carefully placed. Hidden too perfectly to be accidental. "Do you know what these are, Mrs. Langford?" one of the agents asked. I shook my head violently. "No." "I swear, I've never seen them before." He exchanged a look with his partner. The kind of look that says, "We've heard this one before." My chest tightened. My pulse raced so fast I thought I might faint. Hours passed in questions and accusations I couldn't answer. Who gave you the bags? Were you aware of any illegal activity? Did you know your traveling companion has a record? That last question made my world spin. Record? Charles doesn't have a record, I whispered weakly. The agent raised an eyebrow. You mean Charles R. Mitchell, age 41, prior arrest for distribution and possession, suspended sentence in 2018? I stared at him, speechless. My heart stopped. Charles the drug dealer? No. That couldn't be true. He was a trainer, a friend, my lover, my escape. But in that moment, the picture started to shift. The charm, the easy confidence, the expensive watch he always wore, none of it came from his gym salary. And suddenly, all those excuses he gave me for side business trips didn't sound so innocent anymore. My body went cold. By the time they transferred me to the city holding center, the adrenaline was gone, replaced by a deep, hollow numbness. I sat in the back of a police van, staring at my reflection in the window, a reflection I didn't recognize anymore. Somewhere between the airport and the station, reality began to sink in. I was being arrested. Not for an argument. Not for a misunderstanding. For drug possession. When they fingerprinted me, my hands shook so badly the officer had to hold them still. When they took my mugshot, I could barely lift my head. And through it all, one thought played in my mind like a broken record. Harold. What would he think? What would he do when he found out? The man I had betrayed was about to see me on the evening news, standing behind bars in an orange jumpsuit. The shame was unbearable. It wasn't until the next morning that I was allowed a phone call. My fingers trembled as I dialed Harold's number, praying he'd pick up. He didn't. So I left a message, broken, crying, incoherent. Harold, please, I need you. Something terrible has happened. I didn't do this, I swear. Please just call me back. Please. I called again. And again. Still nothing. Later that day, they brought me in for another round of questioning. The DEA agent introduced himself as Agent DeFranco, a tall man with a calm but piercing stare. He laid a folder in front of me. Inside were photos of the confiscated packets, my boarding pass, Charles's booking photo, and my face. Mrs. Langford, he began, you've been charged with possession and transportation of controlled substances. Now, we know your companion, Mr. Mitchell, is involved in narcotics distribution. What we need to know is whether you were aware of his activities. My mouth went dry. I wasn't, I whispered. I swear to God, I wasn't. He tilted his head. You had several messages referencing your trip, emails about relaxation supplies and travel arrangements. Would you like to explain those? I felt my stomach twist. Those emails weren't about drugs. They were about our affair. But I couldn't say that. I couldn't confess to being an adulteress on top of everything else. I don't remember. I stammered weakly. He leaned forward, eyes narrowing. Mrs. Langford, you seem like an intelligent woman. But right now, you're looking at serious time. Unless you start cooperating, you're going to go down with him. Tears filled my eyes. I can't. I don't know anything. He sighed, closing the folder. Then I suggest you get comfortable. You'll have plenty of time to think. That night in the holding cell was the longest night of my life. The concrete floor was cold. The blankets smelled of bleach. A woman in the next cell hummed some tuneless song until dawn. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, replaying every decision that had led me here. Every lie, every choice, every text message. And somewhere deep inside, a voice I had ignored for months finally whispered the truth. This is your fault. The next morning, they told me I had a visitor. For a moment, I hoped it was Harold. It wasn't. It was my father. He looked older than I remembered, his face lined with disappointment more than age. Evelyn, he said softly, sitting across from me through the glass. What have you done, sweetheart? The tears came instantly. Dad, please, I didn't do this. I swear I didn't. He looked down, shaking his head. The DEA says they found drugs in your luggage. You were traveling with that man, Charles. What were you thinking? I pressed my palms to the glass. It wasn't supposed to be like this. I just needed. I don't know. I thought I loved him. He closed his eyes, pained. And Harold. That single word broke me. I lowered my head, sobbing. Please, Dad. Tell him I'm sorry. I tried calling him. My father said quietly. He's already spoken to the DEA. He's angry, Evelyn. Hurt. He's not sure he can forgive you. My breath caught. He spoke to them? Yes. They're searching the house now. He gave them permission. I felt the air leave my lungs. Harold had already turned away from me. Days blurred into weeks. The case grew stronger against me, even though I pleaded innocence. Charles refused to talk to me, and his lawyer kept pushing the blame onto me, saying I had organized the trip. I sat in every hearing like a ghost, barely able to breathe. My lawyer told me to stay quiet, not to make things worse. The DEA found related materials in Charles's home, enough to bury him for years. But that didn't help me. They said my cooperation and involvement still made me complicit. Then one day, Harold finally came. I don't know what I expected. Maybe anger, maybe tears. What I got was worse. Indifference. He sat down across from me, his posture straight, his face unreadable. Harold, please. Save it, he said coldly. I just came to hear your side. How did you end up flying to Hawaii with this man? How did you end up with drugs in your bag? Harold, I didn't know. I cried. I swear I didn't. He must have planted them, or someone did. He shook his head slowly. You were having an affair, Evelyn. Don't lie anymore. I know everything. I saw the emails, the pictures. You betrayed me. His words felt like knives. I'm sorry, I whispered, shaking. I never wanted to hurt you. He cut me off. You broke something that can't be fixed. I'm filing for divorce. Don't expect me to wait around. He stood up. And just like that, he was gone. That night, they transferred me to county jail to await trial. The clang of the cell door closing behind me echoed louder than anything I'd ever heard. The cell was small, metal bunk, thin mattress, single flickering bulb. As I lay there, I whispered into the darkness, I deserve this. For the first time in my life, I believed it. Every lie, every moment of selfishness, every secret message, they had all led here. Maybe the drugs weren't mine, but the punishment? That was karma. And karma always finds its way home. Time loses its meaning in prison. Days bleed into nights, and nights into more of the same gray, airless silence. The first week felt like drowning, gasping for the life I'd lost, for the freedom I'd thrown away. The second week, I stopped counting. Months passed before I learned how to exist inside the walls. You stop waiting for the door to open. You stop expecting forgiveness. You simply exist. The food tasted like metal. The air smelled like bleach and despair. The women around me, thieves, addicts, mothers, each carried their own story, their own punishment. I listened to them, sometimes offering advice, sometimes pretending to be one of them. But deep down, I knew I didn't belong there, not because I was better, but because I was worse. They had stolen money. I had stolen a man's heart, and then I'd broken it. I shared a cell with a woman named Ruth, a grandmother with soft eyes and a lifetime of pain behind them. She was in for fraud 15 years. One night, when I couldn't sleep, she asked, "What did you do, honey?" I hesitated. I cheated on my husband. The rest, it's complicated. She chuckled sadly. Ain't it always? For a moment, I almost laughed. Then the tears came instead. I ruined his life, I whispered. And mine. And I don't even know why. She looked at me, her voice low. You'll spend years trying to answer that, sweetheart. But the only truth you'll find is this. We never know the worth of peace until we lose it. Her words stayed with me. I spent the next 5 years chasing redemption in the only ways I could, teaching yoga to the inmates, volunteering in the library, counseling newcomers who cried their first nights away like I once had. Sometimes, I'd catch my reflection in the cracked mirror and wonder if Harold would still recognize me. My hair had grayed early, my face lined with exhaustion. My spirit, once so full of life, felt muted, but clearer, too. I had plenty of time to think about him, about us. There was a time I thought Harold was boring, too quiet, too predictable. I thought Charles's excitement made me feel alive. But excitement fades. Stability endures. And I had traded the one man who loved me unconditionally for a fantasy that never even cared if I survived. I often dreamed of Harold's face the day he left that visitation room, his calm, emotionless stare. That image became my punishment more than the cell bars ever could. The day of my release came like a whisper I didn't trust. The warden's voice echoed through the hallway. "Langford, pack your things." 5 years gone. When the gate opened, the outside light blinded me. I stood there, clutching a small box of my belongings. One Bible, a photo of my parents, and a worn-out letter Harold had sent through my lawyer years ago. It wasn't a love letter. It wasn't even kind. Just one line written in his neat handwriting. "I hope you find peace, Evelyn. Because I already have." That was the last thing I ever heard from him. Until that day. I didn't go home after my release because there was no home left. The house had been sold years ago. My parents had moved to Florida, too old and too tired to bear the gossip that followed our family name. For months, I lived quietly in a small apartment above a laundromat, working part-time at a yoga studio that didn't ask too many questions about my past. I smiled when I had to, but most days I felt like a ghost wearing my old skin. Then one afternoon I saw his name again. A business article online. Harold Whitman named Vice President of Harrington Marketing Group, New York office. There he was, older, sharper, confident. The same calm eyes. And the same man I had destroyed. My heart ached with something I couldn't name. Pride, pain, regret. Maybe all three. For weeks, I debated whether to reach out. He had every right to hate me. But there were words I'd carried for years that I couldn't keep anymore. So one cold January morning, I took the train to New York. His office was tall and glassy, the kind of building that reflected the city like a mirror. I stood in the lobby for a full 5 minutes before the receptionist asked, "Ma'am, do you have an appointment?" I swallowed hard. "No." "But please tell him it's Evelyn. Evelyn Whitman." She looked uncertain, but made the call. Moments later, she nodded. "He'll see you." My knees nearly gave out. When the elevator doors opened to the top floor, I stepped out into a world that no longer belonged to me. Everything smelled expensive, organized, distant. And then I saw him, Harold. He looked perfect, gray suit, steady posture, a little older but more alive than ever. Time had treated him kindly, maybe because his conscience was clean. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Finally, I whispered, "You look well." He nodded once. "What do you want, Evelyn?" His voice wasn't cruel. It was calm, the same calm that used to make me feel safe, and now only made me feel small. "I didn't come to make excuses," I said quietly. "I just needed you to know. I didn't know about the drugs. I swear, Harold, I didn't." He studied me for a long moment, then leaned back in his chair. "Maybe not," he said. "But you knew about the affair. You knew about the lies. That's enough." Tears burned my eyes. I lost everything because of that mistake. I paid for it. Every single day. He exhaled slowly. "And I suppose that's what karma is, isn't it? You always said you wanted excitement, Evelyn. I hope you found enough of it." I bit my lip, fighting the sob rising in my throat. "I didn't come here to ask for forgiveness. I still love you." His face softened for the briefest second, just a flicker, before the mask returned. "Love," he repeated. "You call what you did love." Before I could answer, his desk phone rang. He pressed a button, keeping his eyes on me. "Yes, Mary?" A woman's voice came through the speaker. "Sir, Leona just called, confirming the 4 tickets for tonight's gala. Her parents will be joining you." He smiled faintly. "Good. Tell her I'll handle everything." The name hit me like a punch. Leona. He had someone else now. Someone real. Someone better. My voice cracked. "You found someone." He didn't deny it. "It's been years, Evelyn. You didn't expect me to wait forever, did you?" I looked down, tears falling freely now. "No. You deserve happiness. He stood up, signaling the conversation was over. And you deserve peace. I hope you find it someday. I nodded slowly. Maybe I will, but it won't mean anything without forgiveness. He hesitated for just a moment, then said softly, Forgiveness isn't something you ask for. It's something you earn. Goodbye, Evelyn. Security entered quietly as he turned away. I wanted to scream, to tell him how sorry I was, how much I still missed him, but the words died in my throat. They always did. As I stepped into the elevator, I caught a final glimpse of him through the closing doors, standing by the window, staring at the skyline like I was already forgotten. Outside, the city was loud and alive. The cars honked, people laughed, the world kept moving. But inside me, time had stopped again. I walked until my feet hurt, until the noise became a blur. Finally, I sat on a park bench and let the winter wind sting my face. A woman nearby was reading a book. A couple laughed together. A child fed pigeons. Life went on, with or without forgiveness. I reached into my purse and pulled out the only thing I had left of Harold, the letter he'd written years ago. I hope you find peace. For the first time, I smiled. A small, trembling smile. Because maybe, just maybe, I finally understood what he meant. That night, as I lay in the small room I rented, I whispered into the dark, Harold, I hope you're happy. The city outside hummed like a heartbeat, and I closed my eyes, not with peace, but with acceptance. Maybe karma had punished me. Maybe life had forgiven me in its own quiet way. But somewhere deep down, I knew one thing for sure. Some mistakes don't destroy you. They just remake you.